Welcome to the Optimized Law Firm podcast, where we talk about how to run a more enjoyable and profitable law firm. I'm your host, Patrick Carver, and I'm the owner of Constellation Marketing. We help hungry law firm owners transcend seven figures and gain total ROI clarity with their marketing. And today we are talking dollar bills, y'all. And I'm pleased to introduce Danielle Hendon, who is the founder and CEO of Four Corners CFO. Welcome, Danielle.
Thank you for having me, Patrick. I love the way you introed that.
Got to have some fun with it. So tell us a little bit about yourself, about the business. Where are you located in the U.S.?
Yeah, so I am in the Houston area. I'm actually a military brat, though, so I've bounced all over the world as a kid. We landed in Houston when I was a teenager, and we've been here ever since. I never thought I'd be the person that would get on a podcast and tell you I love accounting, and you're going to think I'm crazy if you're listening to this as a lawyer, but I really love accounting. I actually went to school thinking I was going to be a music major to start with, and realized they don't make enough money and I was going to be broke. So I left that major, had friends in the business school, decided to give it a shot. And my family jokes with me all the time now, hindsight 2020, they were like, you were the one opening cash registers at the grocery store at 16 and doing the banking stuff. And they're like, I don't know how you didn't know accounting was the path, but I landed there eventually. And I genuinely love what I do. I love turning numbers into stories. And when I started my career, I started in public accounting doing audit, and it was all about understanding the numbers. I left that and went into corporate. Being in Houston, that means I went into oil and gas, because that's what 90% of us here do in some way, shape, or form. And if you don't, you know somebody that does. So oil and gas accounting and audit and all of that, while being with a company that I loved. They liked to think they were small, even though they were $1 billion business. But they went through bankruptcy when the oil markets tanked, gosh, almost a decade ago now. Feels crazy saying that.
Feels like an episode of Landman, hearing all of it.
It bounces everywhere. But when they tanked, they went through bankruptcy, and then the pandemic hit, and it was just kind of this surreal experience of walking with them from big business to small business. And then, I'll be honest, getting let go, because that's what happens in bankruptcy. But having this moment of time where during the pandemic, there were so many people, I never want to take away from what people went through and the hardship that it was for a lot of people with COVID and all of that. But it was a silver lining in how the whole world slowed down. And I think we can all accept that the United States is not known for slowing down, but we were all forced to slow down in a way that we never have before. And for me, that meant getting a completely different perspective on parenting and realizing the coaches and the teachers and the friends and the parents of the friends and this whole other world that, I will be honest, we were about to hire a nanny to do. And I didn't want to give that up. So I wanted to find a way to do what I love doing, as crazy as I am for loving it, but also do it in a way that allowed me to be with my family in the way that I wanted to show up for them. And I took a leap of faith and started Four Corners CFO so that I can bring those bigger business corporate concepts down to small and boutique law firms in a way that makes sense, that isn't a bunch of accounting jargon, that isn't some CPA talking down to you, but somebody to really partner with you in understanding the story that the numbers tell, so you can make the best decision for your business moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds very reminiscent of what a lot of clients we work with, just in terms of, they exist, they want their business to their law firm to have, basically have that balance, have that flexibility, and kind of be able to have a business on their terms. And speaking of lawyers, how did you get into servicing lawyers, and what do you offer now that is kind of uniquely for lawyers? Like, why is that a good why did you decide to choose that as a group to help?
So a couple of different reasons. I will be completely honest and say part of it was stumbling into it. My very first few clients were law firms. And I realized in that path that there's a lot of commonality between CPAs and attorneys in the set. Those of us that have come up in a big firm environment are used to the hustle hard, play hard culture that is out there. And the firm owners that I work with now are the ones that, much like I would like to say I am as well, bucking off that system of 60, 80-hour weeks. It's all about maximizing billable hours and putting in all this effort and work and grinding. And we've sort of flipped the switch to a place where you can be really good at what you do, and you can even do it part-time. If I'm paying you to do it part-time, we're doing it part-time. And they're creating a completely different culture in their firm that is family focused and lifestyle first and still profitable, still giving them the freedom they want, still providing for their team, but doing it in a way that puts people ahead of numbers, which is something very central to how I like to run a business. It's also central to how we function as a fractional CFO.
Very cool. And before I get into some of the more hard-hitting financial questions, I did read in your biography that your favorite song to sing to is "Bring Me to Life" by Evanescence.
Am I dating myself a little there?
And so my question for you is, do you also do the rap part of the song?
Oh, you have to.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not saying I'm good at it, but you have to.
But you go all in. I appreciate that. So now on to the law firm financial side of things. What do you feel like are a couple of the most important financial KPIs or like North Star metrics that law firms you start with, right? Like, what do you preach to your clients if they don't think about anything else in your, monthly report or quarterly report? What do you have them kind of zero in on?
So I will tell you the very first thing, and the number one thing they'll see in their dashboard for our clients is the rule of thirds. And a lot of law firms have already heard this. If you haven't, it basically means a third of your revenue should be paying your revenue generating people. And if you're a little more accounting technical, you might know that as cost of goods sold. But I like to call it revenue generating because it reminds all of us that they are generating revenue. They are your billable team members. Then a third of your revenue should be paying all of your operating expenses, otherwise known as overhead. And a third of your revenue should be left in your profits and profit margin at the very bottom line. If you are hitting the rule of thirds, you're doing something right. If you're not hitting the rule of thirds, it's the very first place we're going to go look to see, are we pricing appropriately? Are we flat fees without the right efficiencies? Are we maximizing realization and utilization? And then you do start to get into those other metrics. So I will start by saying, if you listen to a traditional business podcast, you're going to hear people talk about lifetime value and client acquisition costs and things that don't necessarily apply the same way to a law firm. Lifetime value is not really a thing for a law firm. You might get more business from a corporation that you do business with, especially if you're a business attorney. But for the estate planners out there, you've got an upsell or a downsell, but you don't really have a lifetime value. You might have the probate on the other side. So we want to focus on, more than anything, the team in that revenue generating cost space. Who's on your team? How much do you want them to be working? How much do they want to be working? But what is the generic hours that we want in billable time? How much is that time worth in billable dollars? And then are we actually getting flat fee efficiencies or contingency efficiencies, depending on your pricing model, out of what that team's putting in?
Very cool. What do you normally see as the most out of whack portion of that? Because for my own business, we use a kind of a similar like model called the perfect P&L is what our folks use. And what I've come to understand for my business is that it's 90% of the leverage or the areas that you can manipulate all comes down to labor cost for me. And so I scrutinize that a whole lot more than everything else. Is there a corollary with law firms in in that, or do you see something else when 9 out of 10 people come in? Is there another part of the P&L that's out of whack, and or what would you suggest people look into first when they're trying to get a handle on their finances?
So I would say what we just talked about a minute ago in that rule of thirds, see if you're hitting your rule of thirds. If you are over on your revenue generating costs and you're paying more than a third of revenue towards your people, then we need to see if we have a pricing problem or a people problem or a pipeline problem. Is there enough work to keep everybody busy? Is everybody doing the work? And are we pricing it appropriately? If revenue generating and revenue line up, then you do still need to go look at that operating expense. If you're spending more than a third in operating expense, we want to dig in and figure out, why are we spending so much? Are you getting a return on investment? Is some of this an owner's perk? Because there is a category of owner's compensation that sits in your operating expenses. It's the tax deductible stuff that we all love to run through our business. It's the reason we're business owners for a big part of this. And I want all of our clients to be able to use that, but also know how it's impacting their operating expense. So I'll tell you specifically what we do with our clients is we pull those things out to the extent that we can. They're going to sit right where they need to for tax purposes, but we actually pull them out and move them over to an owner's compensation bucket because I don't want that to skew our operating expense number. That being said, there are things you can do to cut costs in operating expense. I will tell you about one of our clients was in a phenomenal rental space, but she had downsized her team and was still stuck in this lease for the next 5 years. So we had a conversation about subletting and who can we get in and how much space do we really need, because her operating expense was way out of whack compared to what her revenue was.
What do you think is a good percentage of revenue, or in that threes system, to allocate to client acquisition for law firms?
For marketing, I will say, so it depends how you market. The people that are coming to you guys and looking for assistance in terms of outsourced marketing are going to have a higher percentage there than, let's say, the people who are spending more time and less money because they're doing more of that networking, referral-based marketing groundwork. So it's a give and take depending on the style of marketing that fits you best. I always love to tell our clients it's really beneficial to have both. Even if you're not, it doesn't need to be half and half, but you do need some diversity in your marketing. I'm sure, Patrick, you guys are seeing all the impacts of AI and the things that are changing and shifting in that digital marketing world. Whereas I will also say networking and referral-based marketing is slow and unpredictable. It takes a little bit of both sides. In terms of how much we spend, gosh, you're putting me on the spot. I might not be remembering this exactly right, but I want to say it's around 20% of overall operating expense. For a lot of our law firms, it's somewhere between 10 to 20%, 20 being the high end that is usually more digital ads based, and then less than 10 being kind of that low end, more referral marketing based side of things.
Yeah, I think what we typically preach in our whole thing is, one of the ways we try to differentiate ourselves is that we really want to be the advocate for generating ROI for the client, because I think 90% of marketing firms out there are not so interested in that, or they have a surface level of interest, and we don't always hit that for sure, or get that, but what I like to say differentiates us is that we proactively push those conversations, because at the end of the day, we know long term, if we're not making any money, it's not going to work out. And so kind of my thought process, I'm curious to get your take on this, is that you want to get some level of multiple on the ROI spend, and then I think based on that, I tend to think if it is producing a requisite multiple, say 3x or something like that, then it's less about being a percentage of your overall, like having some rigid, okay, I can only go 10% or something like that, but also in mind, I guess keeping in mind the goals of the business, right? Because if they don't want to scale to and absolutely need it, then they don't need to go up. But I think I've seen people get into this, or I've had this discussion with different law firm owners where they'll say something like, well, we can't, our marketing is capped at 10% or whatever the number is. And it's like, well, I understand, but you're also saying you want to grow and we're showing a good ROI. So doesn't that make sense to keep growing?
Yes and no. So I will push back a little bit on that.
Yeah.
Yes, if that's what they want, but growth for the sake of growth without actually improving profit isn't going to get anybody where they want to go. And I will say I've had this conversation with clients before that are on that higher end. Let's say 15% of all of that operating is going into their marketing budget. And we are starting to see a reduction in returns with just the shifting market and the way things are panning out this year. So we will then have a conversation of, do we need to keep spending the same amount of money just to sustain? Or can we do some of that diversification? Can we say, train somebody to go be a rainmaker? What does it cost to get somebody trained in networking and making rain and doing those things and having a little bit of diversity? I will also say growth for the sake of growth is just more money, more problems. If you're not actually putting more money back into your pocket at the end of the day, you're just spending more to spend more and make more. And it's like spin cycle. And I want to make sure that the owners are remembering you don't always have to be on a growth trajectory. And also, if you are on a growth trajectory, you need to make sure that it's benefiting you, not just growing for the sake of growing.
Yeah, totally fair. When you talk to your clients, do you have a schedule of events throughout the year that you use to kind of structure a firm's attention to financial matters? Like, you're doing, I assume, a monthly reconciliation, giving that data. Do you have any kind of set intervals throughout the year that you use to kind of create a structure? And just as a rough, loose example, beginning of the year, maybe that's a big deep dive of the year in retrospect, planning for the future. What do you think about that? Because I'm curious what a good ideal structure is, because one of the just challenges I see with law firm owners, and I think you could add this for every small business owner, is like you're trying to do the work and you're trying to market and and so it can feel really challenging to get into a simple rhythm and feel really overwhelming. But I think you probably have something, kind of a framework that would make that easier, I would imagine.
We do. We have a framework that we use with all of our clients in the onboarding process and every single month to help understand the stories that the numbers are telling us. But I also like to start every call with every client asking how things are going, what's giving them heartburn, what's stressing them out. We could talk about the reports, or I've already read the reports. I already know what's in the reports. I know what's going on with the business financially. We're going to use those reports to problem solve and get to the root cause behind whatever's giving them heartburn. And if nothing's giving them heartburn, we're going to problem solve and root cause behind how do we get that growth trajectory and those goals. A lot of times there's a little bit of a background framework in terms of calendar year, because you do need to prep a budget at the end of the year. So come September, October, we're looking back at all of the expenses, and is this really where we wanted to land? And what do we want to keep? What do we want to get rid of? What do we want to have go forward, so that we can have a budget to start the new year? And then around mid-year, we're looking at the current year's budget and saying, okay, is this the track we want to be on? Every single month, we're looking at the budget outlook, but we're really diving in and saying, are there things we need to cut, especially the longer term things like marketing, where it's, okay, do we need to get in touch with marketing because we're not getting the ROI we thought we would? We've given it 6 months. It's had time to play out. It is or isn't doing what we wanted it to do. And then we can measure up in the summer and figure out where we want to go from there, and touch base in terms of, what do we need to pivot to? Should we do different SEO words? All the things you guys are really good at that I am not, but making sure that we're getting that ROI out of it probably come midsummer. And then I will also say we go through kind of a quarterly check-in to true things up with clients that are doing bonuses quarterly, or they're doing, trying to think of other things we do quarterly. They might have a quarterly conference budget. Did we actually go to those conferences? Things that are not necessarily monthly trends, we'll usually check in and true up in the quarters.
Gotcha. And I know you offer fractional CFO services for clients. Can you walk me through the progression that you recommend for law firms with regard to revenue or size of business where they would need or benefit from a more comprehensive CFO structure, as opposed to, you know, if they're doing $100,000 a year, 200,000, like, you know, do they need a CFO? I mean, or what does that kind of progression look like? And when do you think it's really most impactful to bring, you know, somebody on to kind of help with that organization and orchestration?
So I will tell you that that question right there is part of why we specialize in small and boutique firms, because I do believe having a financial foundation is critical for every firm, even if you're a solo that's just hanging a shingle. So for us, we do that through strategy calls. I know that you cannot afford to bring on a fractional CFO yet, but I do want you to have the strategy to set the foundation and make sure we're on the right track with pricing. I don't want you to build a huge pipeline and you're pricing wrong the whole time. So we're going to go through a strategy call package. And by the end of that, the goal is that you are set up and making the money and got the pipelines in place and all of the things that then we can take all the numbers off your plate and you don't have to worry about them anymore. And then we will start to build a budget and work on your cash flow and decide who to hire and when to hire and how to hire and what to pay them and how many hours and all of the what ifs that come into that financial picture. From a dollars and cents, I will tell you what usually happens is the solo will do strategy calls. Then once you hit, I'd say 250, 300, when a solo really starts hitting their own cap and you're like, okay, I need help. That is like the scariest place to be in as a business owner, is hiring help, not just because you're now trying to find the right person, but it's, can I pay them? When will they make me money? How much can I afford? Am I going to be able to keep paying myself? All of those questions we can answer when we go through this budgeting process. So as you're nearing that capacity is when I would say you want to find a fractional CFO that specializes in the small and boutique firms. There is a place where you scale, and I will honestly say we've got a couple of clients in this spot where you grow into the 8 figures and the multiple 8 figures. That is going to be a very different CFO service than what my team and I offer. And you're going to go to a completely different level with a different team. But every business needs that financial foundation. You don't want to be building a pipeline and pricing it wrong the whole time, or building a business and not actually paying yourself, and then you burn out and you can't pay your personal bills, and then you go out of business anyways.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth to that, and I've, you know, experienced that in my own business evolution. With, you know, you go for the first 5 years or whatever, and it's just willpower, right? And you look at the bank account, and that's your main measuring stick, and then you get, you know, into tax time, and you're like, wait a second. I start really looking through and realize, okay, I didn't actually make that much.
I made better in corporate or in big law. And I've had people come into our consult calls that are questioning whether or not they should go back. And it's not because they're not great attorneys. They are fabulous attorneys, but nobody taught them how to set up a business.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. And I think it's one of those things, like anything in life, that is so valuable, but it's also often the last on the list because you don't feel the impact immediately. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things it's hard to know the value of it when you are kind of in the, you know, among the trees and can't see the forest.
Yeah, I love telling law firm owners, a fractional CFO, the right one, isn't just about making the numbers look better on paper. It's about giving you peace of mind and confidence when you're making a decision.
Yeah, that absolutely makes sense. A couple more questions, and we can wrap up. Do you see any AI having any impact on how law firms handle their finances? Are there any opportunities for law firms, or maybe how you do, your work, that you kind of see your services shifting or improving or adjusting with some of the AI developments that are happening?
AI can do a lot, and I'm actually a huge proponent of AI. We use it on our team. You have got to check in on it, though. You have to train it. You have to gut check it. You have to make sure it got it right, because it will be the most confident person in the room and wrong.
Yeah.
So I say that to say I'm borrowing this from somebody else. This is not my words, and I can't honestly remember who to give credit to, or I would. But I think the firms, whether financial or legal or marketing or whatever professional service you're in, the firms that are staying in touch with AI and learning how to make it a part of their system are going to beat out the firms that don't. I don't think AI is going to take any of our jobs, but I think the people that know how to use it are going to be able to take the jobs of the ones that don't.
Yeah, that's well said. And I think I mean, the way my experience with it is like, it's the world's best yes man. You know what I mean? It is like,
it is absolutely a silo.
It makes you feel like you can run through a wall, and and then you kind of get to the end of it and realize, like, hey, there's a lot of stuff. It's like, oh yeah, you're right to call me out on that. Like, okay.
I will be honest and say my team works very heavily in Excel. We do a lot of things in Excel, and I thought I was really good at Excel. But when I turn to AI and I'm like, hey, I want to do this, 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 and this, I need a formula.
Yeah.
Man, can it spit out some amazing things.
Yeah.
But you always have to make sure it got it right.
Well, it's unbelievable, because what you're describing is exactly my experience, where it can give you just something that's kind of truly mind, altering or mind bending. But we had this problem consistently for a long time where it could not do basic math. It would give us number, we tell it, okay, what's 8 plus 8? And it would say 20 and just lie through its teeth. So
do not let it run your financial analytics. Don't stick your P&L in there and ask it to tell you what to do with your business.
Yeah.
It's not there yet. Now, if you know what you want to do and you need a formula to figure out how to make it work in Excel or Google Sheets, it can crack out a formula.
Yeah. Final question. If there are any quick wins that lawyers can take away, maybe apply to their own finances today, that would be, what you would consider like low effort on their part, but have a high upside?
I say this knowing how much I hate doing this myself, and we literally just wrote a social media post, I think, about it. But track your time. I get it when you come from a big firm and you are burnt out on time tracking and you never want to do it again. You need to know how much time you and your team are spending on everything. That information is gold. It is how we know that you're pricing appropriately. It's how we can start to measure budget. It's how you can make efficiency and utilization and realization decisions. It's a pain in the butt, and you do not have to do it by the 10th of the hour if you're not billing hourly, but you do need to know where your time went.
Do you have any tools or things, like just best practices, you would recommend to do that? Because I think one of the big sticking points, is always like, what tool to use, or how, which one is good but not overly taxing in terms of time commitment or energy commitment from people using it.
The majority of our clients use their practice management tool. So most of our clients are in Clio. You can literally just be like, yep, I'm in here, I'm on this client, hit start, let's go, I'm working. And it will track it, and then you can stop it, and it'll summarize it, and it'll go to the right matters. For anyone doing hourly work, you already know this because you have to, but it is even more important to do on your flat fees. It can get a little tricky, and I will tell you that you basically want to track it at a $0 rate, because you still need to be able to bill your flat fee. But it is so critical that you know how much time you and your team are putting in on those flat fees to know if you're even making the profit margin you thought you were.
Awesome. Well, Danielle, I really appreciate all the wise words, and I think there's a ton of value we covered in this approach. So thank you all for joining, and big thank you today for joining us on the podcast, Danielle.
Thank you so much for having me today.
Absolutely. All right, so I will just do another quick intro, and then I've got kind of the list of questions I mentioned, just about like the more business, and
yeah, I love it.
Kind of fire through these rapid fire. All right, so we are chatting with Danielle Hendon. She is the owner and founder of Four Corners CFO, and one of our partners. So I wanted to get into some of the specifics of her business, give you kind of a window into what working with her and her team might look like. So tell us kind of the elevator pitch of what your company does for law firms, and what types of law firms you service.
Okay, I'm going to give you my favorite opener to this, and it is that law firms rarely sell for more than what they made in the current year at best. There aren't multiples on law firms, which means you've got to make the most money you can right now and put it where you want it every single year you're in business. And that is what we focus on doing. We support small and boutique law firms in making the most profit they can and finding that freedom and lifestyle that they really want, so that they are running a business, not working for their business. And we don't do bookkeeping, we don't do taxes. We focus solely on that forward-looking budget, cash flow, strategic analysis to help you get where you're wanting to go.
Very cool. And do you recommend bookkeepers, or are you kind of part of that solution, even though you don't do it yourself? They could, a client could come to you, and you'll kind of be the quarterback of that financial piece of the business. Does that sound right? Or
I would
tell me more.
90% of the clients I share with bookkeepers don't actually meet with their bookkeepers. They just meet with me, and then their bookkeeper's like, hey, I've got questions. We'll cover them. I'll send them back, and they don't have to do 2 different financial meetings. We will also, if you aren't ready for a CFO, if we're in like a strategy call place and you just need some strategy, I'm very picky about the bookkeepers that I work with, and I have a handful that I know and love and will make recommendations to make sure that you're at least set up with the right bookkeeping foundation to give you the right numbers from the start.
Okay, awesome. Because that's a big, I would say, pain point with just bookkeepers in general is, if you're going into that as an attorney, you may not know, you don't know what you don't know, and so someone's going to start doing your books one way, and I was kind of
your bar, your license is on the line. It's your ethical.
Totally. Only to find out, a year later that it was done using an outdated style, or just not done that well. So having that oversight is probably a huge advantage for working with you. And do you, or tell me, what's like the most common use case for your business? Like what do you solve for clients when what problem do they come to you in their words, and that you're able to help with? Because I understand, kind of, it sounds like you guys are more of the quarterback of the financial picture, right, and the planning and strategy. Do they just kind of come to you and say, give me clarity, or like what's that interaction like when problem you really can solve for them?
I'll give you a couple of different scenarios that are some of my favorite. The first one is your revenue numbers, your P&L. You think it looks great. It looks great on paper, but your bank account doesn't. And it's not transferring all the way through. And that means we're missing some pieces, and we need to do some digging and some financial strategy and adjusting. That is one of my favorite places, not because you guys aren't making money, because you usually are, and it's usually still got a good salary behind it, but those profit margins aren't coming all the way through because we haven't structured everything in a way that supports that. The other, and one of my favorite places for people to find me, is when they've hit their cap as an attorney, and you're doing all the doing. You're running the business, you're running the marketing, you're running the firm, you're bringing in the clients, you're doing everything, and you can't. So I'm a big proponent of, you have to pay yourself really well, because eventually you have to pay somebody else to do that piece. And we want that somebody else to be able to do that piece, and you still be able to take your piece. So when people hit their cap and they need to hire, it is probably one of the scariest places to be as a business owner. And I've done enough of these with enough firms to sit here and tell you, if you have 10 billable hours a week of work to give somebody else, you can hire somebody full time. And the other 20 hours a week in a well-cultured firm that's not aiming for 40 billable is going to all be profit.
Yeah, I think the kind of what we're talking about is like, a sounding board essentially for those financial decisions. And I think that's what a lot of folks utilize us for, in terms of, hey, how are we doing compared to other immigration firms out there, or other firms in the area? I feel like, that's a big benefit. Since you work exclusively with law firms, that's your focus. You're able to have a really good consensus about what is the best practice as far as your numbers, that what your P&L looks like, and can build all that out. That's great. What do you hear from clients, or in client feedback and reviews about your business compared to, say, other CFOs? Like what kind of sets you guys apart, or is maybe unique to Four Corners compared to others?
Okay, I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say love me or hate me for saying it. It's all good. One of the best compliments I ever got early on in my business is, you're not that like stuffy old white guy CPA telling me what to do. And I was like, nope, this is a partnership. I've got purple hair, and you've got to be okay with that too. And this is about supporting you in making the best decision, not about telling you what to do. I am not going to be the person that tells you what to do. I'm going to help us identify options. We're going to talk about opportunity costs. We're going to do what we call what if scenarios, and what if I do this, and what if I do that, and what happens on the other side. If you have something, and I know this because I'm a business owner myself, when you feel something instinctually that you have to do in your business, and you're like, I know this is the next thing, we just have to figure out how to make it work on paper.
Makes sense. And what does working with you actually look like? So if somebody calls and you guys, sign an agreement, what does that, kind of first month look like, and progression, as far as, just kind of the nuts and bolts of what that relationship looks like, so they can kind of get into your system and start, what happens, when they start seeing some, next steps, and to get to that kind of value and that aha moment where things start to, click or improve with the finances.
My goal is you get an aha moment out of every meeting. We meet once a month in person. My team and I do the doing. You just have to show up and meet with us once a month. We will coordinate with your bookkeeper. We'll coordinate with your tax person. That said, there is a 6-month onboarding process, because there's 6 steps that we want to make sure we get through, and there should be aha moments in every single one of them. I will give you an example. The very first thing we have to do is look at your balance sheet. If your balance sheet is not being reconciled properly by your bookkeeper, if your trust accounts do not tie out properly for a 3-way match, we need to talk about process and procedure before we even start talking about financial strategy, because you've got bad data coming in. So we have to start there. And then the next step is going to be, let's talk about your revenue streams. I want to know how you make money, who makes you money, what types of money are we making, how are we pricing? Are we flat fee? Are we hourly? What does the team look like? And we're going to pull it all apart, so that then we can say, okay, this is how much money we think you could be making. And if it's not how much money you are making, which is usually the case, what can we go tweak this month that will help get us closer to that goal? And each layer is going to be like that. It will lead into us building a budget, running budget to actual analysis, so we can really understand the story, and then going from that budget to actual into a cash flow forecast and a cash review. Are we over or under by cash? Are we making money or losing money? What does it look like 6 months from now? For those of you that are on contingency basis, when are we going to get paid, and do we have enough to get there? All of those pieces come into play, and we are here to support you, not just in that monthly meeting, but by email with 24 to 48 hour turnaround, especially if we're in client meetings that week. But we're here to support you with those what ifs all the way through. I will have a client email and say, oh my gosh, so-and-so just quit. We need to hire somebody else. Can we do a comp plan? And we'll figure out what we can afford to give.
Great. And do you have any particulars in terms of who you work best with? I know you mentioned boutique, small law firm owners. Is that, what does that mean to you? Is that, a solo to 10 lawyers? Are there practice areas you like working with more than others, or what does that look like?
I love this question because I actually ask everybody that says the same thing to me, because I think small and boutique means different things to different people. Somebody can say small law firm and mean 50 people, and that is definitely not what I mean by small law firm. So when I say small and boutique, we go all the way down to the solos. So I will say at that point, you probably want strategy calls, not full-blown done for you services just yet. When they start having a team of, I will say, maybe 3 to 5 with paralegals, bringing on associates, you've got a VA or an EA or an outsourced person that's helping. That's where we usually start jumping into the focused CFO services. And then my favorite place to work with people is growing into those multiple 7 figures, single digits, multiple 7-figure space. So like the 2 to 3 to 4 to 5, it's just really fun. And so much about your business changes in that place. It is also usually where we're, I would say, less than 15 people, usually 15 to 20, maybe hitting in that phase. They are not all attorneys. If you have 15 to 20 attorneys, you should have far more than $3 or $4 million. But getting into that space where you're building something that you could have a succession plan behind, that you've got a team behind you, you can go on vacation and the whole firm's not going to hurt for it.
Excellent. Can you walk us just a little bit, or give us a little preview in kind of your service offerings and just range of pricing? You kind of alluded to it there, where
flat fee pricing. So I am an open book on that set.
Yeah, and then just for the record, if someone watches this, things may change, but I like to ask this question just so it can make it a little easier to then hop on a call and and kind of, if we're all in the same ballpark.
What you're getting into.
Yeah, just even in a basic level. So yeah, kind of tell me just what are the services and maybe some pricing ranges, so people have an idea of kind of what an engagement looks like.
Perfect. Yes. So the very lowest level that you will get is a single strategy call, and that's $295. We also do a package of strategy calls, which is essentially 6 of them. It's buy 5, get 1 free. It's $14.95. And then from there, you go into our focused CFO package, which is an initial 6-month onboarding. So the first contract is for 6 months with $24.95 upfront one-time onboarding fee. And then after that, it's $19.95 a month. For the handful of clients that we take in the larger, like past 5 million, you are going to be looking at a $49.95 upfront onboarding fee and double $19.95 times 2. And I should be able to do math in my head. Double that is what we charge for the monthly fee on the upwards of 5 million.
Perfect. And last question I have for you is, tell us just where, contact information, what's the best way to get in touch. Of course, I can, more than happy to make introductions, but do you guys have like an introductory call or a discovery call? And, I assume go into the website and kind of can you give us that information, what folks should do?
Absolutely. So my website is the number 4, not the word, cornerscfo.com. From there is a contact page. There is also a link for discovery call. So the very first step is a discovery call. I want to make sure that we're both a really good fit for each other. I love working with passion-centered firms, and it takes the right fit for everybody. I am one of the abundant mentality people. I have friends, if I am not the right person for you, that I am more than happy to recommend for other people. And if we are the right fit, then we'll go from there and we'll really dive into what we can do for you, what that looks like in the framework, and what all the details are.
Perfect. Danielle, thank you so much for your time, and look forward to having you back and keep talking about your business.
Thank you so much.